Hello X, I have something to share and I really need advice. I usually don't come over here, I frequent other boards, but I'm in kind of a predicament right now. I simply don't know whether I can talk about it with anyone I know, and especially authorities, because I fear they will consider me insane and I will get in trouble. I have decided to share my story here because I can stay anonymous. I won't disclose the location where this is happening. All you need to know is it's one of the European capitals. Some 3 months ago, I got a job in one of the office buildings as a junior maintenance worker. It is very simple work, mostly delivering and assembling furniture, setting up workstations, and that kind of stuff. The building I work at is actually a skyscraper. It has 32 above ground floors and 5 basement levels. The one in the picture is not it, by the way, just a random image. First 2 months of work were absolutely normal. I helped set up workstations for some new departments of a couple of companies that rent floors in the building. We moved a large department from one floor to another and did a lot of small tasks. About 2 weeks ago, I started stumbling over some weird shit. We began April as usual, picking tasks, looking up whatever is planned for the month, trying to manage the timetable. At some point, I've noticed something I did not pay attention to before. There were never any tasks related to floor 24. At first, I found it curious, but then dismissed it. It simply wasn't rented by any company yet. Then I realized that is not the only floor that is empty, but all the other floors still had some stuff to do on them from time to time, if only a weekly checkup. 24th? Nothing like that. I wanted to ask one of my colleagues about it, but at first, I did not want to make a fool out of myself in case there is some plain and simple reason. Then I just forgot about it. A week ago though, I was taking the elevator and I recalled my curiosity. I hit the button for floor 24, but nothing happened. It did not light up, as other buttons do. At first, I thought its LED burnt out or something, but no matter how many times I hit the button, the elevator would not go to the 24th floor. We actually have 6 elevators in the building, and I have tried every single one, growing more and more curious. Same thing. What this meant is that this is not an elevator malfunction. Buttons were deliberately shut off to prevent the elevators from going to floor 24. Naturally, all kinds of thoughts started going through my mind, like the movie Loft and Matrix, where tall building floors are used to hide something in plain sight in the middle of the city. I dismissed those thoughts at first. The floor was not rented, was not used. Maybe the buttons were shut off, so people don't wander there. But again, there are other unrented floors, and I could get to them just fine. That sparked my curiosity again. Unhealthy curiosity, I guess. Over the course of my work, I befriended a senior maintenance worker who worked in this building pretty much since when it got built, many years ago. He is in his 50s, a bit harsh on the outside, but overall a good man. I've asked him about floor 24 as casually as I could, sort of mentioning it while talking about random daily stuff. I could swear he stiffened for a second, but then relaxed and just said, "It's closed." Closed? I asked. I played being casually surprised, because there isn't such a thing as closed floor for maintenance really. He simply replied, "Yeah, we don't work there." Then he left, claiming he had something else to finish. I'm sure you understand. This was pretty strange. And because I'm a goddamn idiot, my curiosity started growing stronger and stronger. Finally, this Friday, I've decided to check what's going on floor 24. I just could not sleep, having such a mystery, or whatever it is, right under my nose. After all, I was working as part of building stuff. I am pretty sure any one of you who had a job on the inside of whatever knows what I am talking about. Once you gain access to all the back rooms and places behind personnel-only doors, you get this strange feeling of, I don't know how to describe it, being in, kind of like the secret club thing. You look at clients who are visiting differently because they can't get where you can. And now, I learned that there is a place where I can't get. That tackled my ego, I guess. And it's not like there was any rule or anything said at any time about floor 24. There was nothing prohibiting me to get in. So I came over to work on Saturday, claiming I forgot to finish something that had to be ready for Monday. Security were not suspicious at all. Stuff like that happens from time to time. I went into our office, got my stuff. I have a small toolbox, and took an elevator to floor 25. Now, I could not do anything with elevator buttons. Technically, I have the tools to open the control panel, and I probably could figure out how to wire it to get me to the 24th. But our elevators have cameras, so yeah, out of question. I went down the stairwell and stood in front of the thick, fireproof door of the 24th. It was not marked in any way, and it was just like any other door on any other floor, with one exception. We use magnetic cards to open locks on those doors to gain access. The usual lock was also on this door, but the light on it was not on, which meant that the lock was shut off. Being the smartass that I am, I figured it's a maintenance problem and I should take a look. You know how it is. You pull excuses out of your ass on the go. Of course, I only wanted to get in. Luckily, over the course of my work, I had one of the colleagues train me in very simple maintenance for those locks. They were oldish and faulty, so we often had to check up on them. I pulled my tools out and got to work. Luckily, the lock itself had the power. It's simply the cables inside were disconnected. Normally, it would strike me as strange, but I was in the zone. I had to get in there. I short-wired the lock, and I heard the usual click of door getting open. I pushed it a bit with my foot, grabbed my tools, and opened the door wider. The first thing that struck me was that the entire floor was pitch black. Yeah, sure, it's unused and all, but you see, the floors in our building have huge windows that take up the entire surface of outer walls. Saturday was pretty sunny. It was midday. There had to be at least some light on the floor, and what I stared at was complete, utter darkness that isn't even possible at night because of the city lights on the outside. Perhaps the windows were covered by something. I did not feel much distress yet, more of an adrenaline of having an adventure. I took a flashlight out of my toolbox, placed the box itself to keep the door open, and stepped in. At first, I've noticed that the floor is covered with a thick layer of dust, which made me leave distinct footprints. I thought it might be some sort of construction dust, as it usually is when buildings are being finished. But no, the floor seemed finished. The dust had to accumulate here naturally over a very long time. I've checked the light switches and had no success. Seems like the entire floor had its power disconnected. Curious, I moved further in. The small corridor took me out into an open space type of office, which took about half of the floor. The other half consisted of enclosed rooms. I've instantly noticed two very, very weird things. First of all, windows were not covered by anything. There was simply a complete darkness behind them, as if someone coated them with a thick layer of silicone or whatever from the outside. The second thing is that the office actually had stuff in it. There were lines of desks everywhere, with computers on them, chairs beside. Everything was covered in dust. I've decided to take a closer look at the desks first. The thing that struck me is that the computer monitors were all CRTs, and fairly old models too. Something out of 90s. Old, plain computer boxes. Mechanical keyboards. Mice without mouse wheels. There were other objects on the desk too. Pencils, documents, coffee mugs, and a lot of other office and personal stuff. It was as if everyone just left the office after a day of work for 20 years. I've decided not to touch anything for now because I would leave clean marks in the dust, and I started to feel anxious. Instead, I came over to one of the windows. I shone a light outside to figure out why it was so dark. My first thought of it being covered from the outside was wrong. The light came clean through and sunk into some sort of black smoke. I can only describe it like that. It was as if everything outside was filled with thick, black smoke, no wind or anything. It twirled and moved slightly, but light could not get more than a forearm length in. At some point, I could swear there was something else outside. Some weird shape or shapes were in the smoke. I don't know if it's just my imagination. I really hope so. Then I heard the noise. It was coming from one of the enclosed rooms. It's hard for me to describe it. I guess it was like clacking of mechanical keyboard when someone types on it. And then a phone rang inside one of those rooms. It startled me so much, I let out a loud gasp, and then I knew I had enough. I bolted towards the stairwell, praying for it to still be open, kicked the toolbox outside, and shut the door behind me. I sat there, listening, trying to catch any sound coming from the inside, almost paralyzed in fear. Then I quickly opened the lock again and made sure the wires were disconnected like they were before. I went back into maintenance office, got myself some tea, ate, and tried to calm myself down. When I managed that, I passed the security desk and made it outside. I called in sick this week. I have no idea what to do right now. I am absolutely sure at least some part of building crew is in on it. On what? I have no fucking idea. I can't talk to them about it, and I hope nobody notices what I did. I don't think police will give a damn about my story, as it does not involve anything illegal, and I don't want to talk to my friends or family about it, because they might consider me insane. I don't think I have the will to go there anymore. I was scared shitless, and I still am. This does not make any sense. 20-year-old office, abandoned overnight. Fine, sure, but fucking black smoke outside. And there is something inside those rooms. I won't even mention the probability of getting caught doing that. I was stupid to go in there to begin with. I could bring someone else inside, maybe a weapon too, but I have no idea if I can trust anyone from the building crew, and I don't think I can manage to bring anyone from outside without raising suspicion. Fuck, I don't even know if whoever hides this shit isn't onto me already. Really, I have no idea what I bumped into. Naturally, I gave it some thought. There is just way too much weird stuff going on. First of all, you don't just abandon an office overnight, leaving all the stuff, and it did not look like people evacuated from there either. I would probably see some stuff tipped over. They would take personal belongings, maybe a chair that was rolled far from the desk in a hurry. Nothing like that was there. Second thing is the building crew. I am sure the owners know about this shit. No idea how much. I feel like they encountered something insane and just decided to seal it off and never speak of it again. If they told newer workers never to visit the floor, one of them will get curious for sure. Instead, they chose not to speak of it and rely on the simple social mechanic. If you don't have to do something somewhere, you don't go there. I bet nobody pressed the 24th floor elevator buttons for years, even though the building is in constant use, and there is just plain supernatural stuff. There isn't any damn smoke visible outside, unless I'm utterly insane. We are talking about some sort of alternate reality or space distortion or whatever, and I don't even want to think what made the keyboard noise. And who the fuck would call a phone on an abandoned floor? This is just too much. I have more questions than I have answers. The glass we are speaking of is skyscraper windows, and you should know, those are pretty damn hard to break. They have multiple layers, coating, and are made to withstand heavy wind pressure, as well as slight shifts and stretching of building structure. So yeah, even if I ever go back, I have no idea whether I will be able to break those with anything but, I don't know, maybe a battering ram, or hitting it repeatedly with a sledgehammer. Besides, I have a strange feeling that even if I'm relatively safe inside, once I break the window, the black smoke will pour in, and then I am fucked on many levels. It was built in the 90s. That is as much as I can say. I don't really want you pinpointing it. It could get me in trouble, even if I'm just paranoid. Yeah, I'm pretty damn paranoid right now. I'm sure you understand. That being said, I think the office, computers, and everything else was placed there soon after the building got built, and open for business, and the floor was abandoned some short time after. There was only a smell of old, abandoned building and dust. It's kind of distinct. I used to visit a couple of abandoned places in my life, so it's comparable. Nothing strange there. I didn't notice any changes in temperature. It was colder than regular offices, but not by much. Probably simply due to smoke outside, obstructing all of the light coming in. And before you ask, 23rd and 25th floors have regular offices there, and they don't see anything suspicious outside the windows. Well, I called in for sick leave this week, so I am home, trying to figure out what to do. I have not noticed anything suspicious outside the window or whatever. I didn't get any calls from work after informing my boss I'm sick. The skyscraper was built after the USSR fell, on the wave of major investments. I am pretty sure it was handled by locals and not international investor though. There is a subway. It's also a capital, so yeah, I'm pretty sure it has extensive underground system, but I have no idea whether it is in the vicinity. I am not sure how anything underground might be connected to the 24th floor though. I've been to those floors routinely a few times over the course of my work. They are absolutely normal. Nothing odd there, and people never complained about anything weird, not even noise. Granted, the floors/ceiling are so thick, you can't really hear anything that's going on the other floor, unless some power tools or whatever are used, I guess. There weren't any such reports though, as far as I know. I am fairly sure the only way to the 24th is through the elevator shafts, and one of the two staircases, unless we are talking about breaking the window up from outside, or drilling through the floor/ceiling of floors above and below respectively, and that kind of stuff won't fly naturally. Well, as I can see, people here took trying to find the building very seriously. I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but I also would not like you to waste time. I lied about the number of floors, and it's not floor 24, because yeah, buildings like that are pretty easy to find. I just did not want to give arbitrary information, but you have to understand, I am paranoid about this. Until I find out more, I am assuming there might be a conspiracy of sorts, and my life might be in danger, even if I believe this is unlikely. I know you can dig deep, and I cannot risk anything, even if my fear will turn out to be baseless. All you need to know is that it's in Eastern Europe. It's a very tall building, and it was finished in the 90s. From the looks of it, floor 24, I will keep calling it that, was not used since the 90s too, but I cannot be certain. I did not stay long enough to make sure. As for the smoke, I am absolutely positive windows are not covered by anything from the outside. Also, the windows are layered, but the overall thickness is about 5-ish centimeters, and the light from my flashlight seemed to go further. So, unless there is some terrarium on the outside of the windows, I doubt the smoke is contained, no matter how weird it sounds. Also, any construction like that will be visible from the outside, and it is not. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. I am going to tell my inward story unsolicited, because I know I was fucking lucky, and if I'm right, it adds some credence to the missing 411 shit. 2005, camping by myself in Lake Louise, inside Banff National Park, Canada's first, and I believe, biggest national park. Now, this campground is on the edge of a small town, inhabited 100% by employees, and gas station and clinic employees of the hotels that are in the town, but it's far enough just out of town that it feels completely isolated. The entire campground is surrounded by a 5-foot electrified fence to keep grizzly bears out, as that is an actual worry for people living in the area. I had just quit my job working in the town and had literally nowhere to live on earth, so like the brave hobos of old, I spent my last 110 Canada bucks and rented a week in campgrounds. First night was fine, apart from the absolute freezing, rock hard, late April ground, and the sub-zero nightly temperatures. I thought I was going to die that first night. Go figure, it was the only good night there. On the second night, after barely falling asleep through my clattering bones, I was awoken at about 1 a.m. There was something about a foot away from my head, raising and lowering its hoof in an almost rhythmic fashion. Of course, it being so close, it was more than loud enough to wake me up. This thing, with its mighty hoof, just sat directly outside the back of my tent. Again, inches from where my head was, and just raised and lowered its hoof over and over. Not stamping, mind you, just bump, bump, bump. Now, I am a fairly gifted empath. You're already on X. Just indulge me here, because it is true. And I could feel this thing's eyes on me, and it felt fucking malevolent. It felt conscious that it knew what the fuck it was doing. I finally fell asleep. I can't remember if it stopped first, or if my exhaustion just overcame me, but I did. I awoke the next morning, and waited until the sun was fully out, because I had no clue what the fuck would fuck with a person like that, in a completely empty campground, far outside of a town of about 200 people, in the middle of sub-zero night, with a fucking electrified fence around the perimeter. My first thought was check for any hoof prints. I checked out behind my tent, where there was a small patch of trees, and a kinda little inlet before the fence. The ground was rock hard, so of course, no prints I could say. I'm not a tracker. I started my fire, ate my breakfast, and went into town for some supplies. At this point, I honestly thought it was probably a moose, as I imagined a full-grown moose could possibly step over a 5-foot fence. Why it fucked with me, I did not care to think about, but that night, as I was reading one of the Flower of Life books, I did not think that I needed to be afraid. I was still more terrified I would freeze to death rather than get mauled in my sleep. 2 a.m. Woken again, full panic mode. Strain my ears and hear a light spring rain. Suddenly, I hear it again, with more force than last night. Bump, 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 bump. No word of a lie, no shitting. There were 2 of them this time, and I legit got the concept thought in my brain that they could absolutely wreck me, and they wanted me to know it. I slowly sat up, fighting the feeling of dread as the hooves fell directly outside my tent. And for the first time, I lit a candle I was given by one of my best friends before I left on the misadventure that took me here. It was a candle of St. Judas, patron saint of lost souls and the hopeless. I lit it, and a few other candles, and prayed to any deities that would listen. I tried to harden my head and my resolve. I went in and out of sleep the entire night, but I could feel their eyes on me, and I could hear the hooves fall on and off until dawn. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep that entire night. So, as dawn broke, and the hooves were gone, I decided, fuck it, I'm going outside right fucking now to see what the fuck that was. I opened my tent, and directly in front of it, I shit you not, was a giant log, the kind you use to cut other logs on, not 5 feet in front of the entrance to my tent. I recognized it immediately, and my intuition told me it was an altar, and that they wanted an offering. Fuck that. I grabbed my boots, my now lit candle, and some clothes, and left my tent and all my other shit there, and hightailed it into town, to stay in my old staff accommodation for a couple of days. I returned on my last day to pick up my house. My tent was undisturbed, got my shit, and went home with my tail in between my legs to live with my alcoholic mother I had kicked out of my life 7 years ago because I had nowhere else to go, and I needed fucking shelter after that ordeal. Few things of note. That mountain is alive or something, and a great conductor of psychic energy. Almost every time I put my head to the ground, I could feel my consciousness just expand. It felt like I was mind melding with the mountain. So, final thoughts. I firmly believe those things outside my tent were sentient, and I firmly believe they were human. I think that what we think of as Bigfoot are just spirits, same as the shadows in the forest people bump into, or the stupid fucking satyr things or Wendigo, or whatever it was that fucked with me over those 2 nights. Maybe not a ghost story, but a paranormal one, I guess. I worked on the hospice / end-of-life ward of a nursing home for about 8 months. Most of the guys that came in had less than 6 months to live, and many, due to the nature of medical care in the US, don't go on hospice until they only have a few weeks left to live. I am a chaplain, so believing in the supernatural is somewhat a prerequisite. There was one particular gentleman, Mr. V, who was a little over 90 and had been there for about 5 months. The dietitian wanted to publish a study on him because the man had subsisted on approximately 200 calories a day for months. There was no rational explanation for his continued survival, though he was literally dying on the vine. We had to put a very powerful blower in his room to mask the smell of his decay. Death warmed over is an apt description, but it's not a stretch to say the man was perpetually on the line between life and death for months. The team psychologist believed that he was holding out to see his ex-wife one last time, and having worked in the dying business for some time, the will to survive until closure is remarkable. He was still sharp as a tack, despite having 1 foot in the grave. Anyway, if you believe such things, Mr. V was remarkably aware of the Grim Reaper. Per nurses on the night shift, Mr. V would ring the nurse to bell them to tell them the Lord is walking in the halls. Whenever this happened, someone on the hospice wing would die. Documented in his case file is no less than 4 occasions when he alerted nurses, and he was 4 for 4 when predicting a death. He did not predict all the deaths on the ward, but when he did, he was right. As he was incapable of leaving his bed, how he would know the state of other patients is a mystery. During team rounds one morning, I asked him how he was doing. He said that he was packing his bags. A few of the nurses laughed, thinking Mr. V was delirious and talking about leaving or perhaps going on a vacation, but I picked up on the language and stayed after to chat. I asked where he was going, and he pointed up. Using his language, I asked if he had seen the Lord walking the halls last night, and he said no, but this morning he believed he would be leaving. I asked if there was anything he needed to say or do before he left, and he shed a tear, but did not say anything. I wished him farewell and to have a good trip. He thanked me and smiled. He died that evening. Have a question about a personal experience of mine, since I hardly see any green text like it at all. Be me, about 5 or 6 at the time, over at my dad's house for the weekend. Rented 1-bedroom house in Arizona that would be a larger apartment with a hallway that leads to the bedroom, and right across is the bathroom. Dad is cooking in the kitchen when I need to go to the bathroom. Walk down the hallway, not suspecting anything. Dark with no light on, but little me does not quite worry too much since I can turn on the bathroom light. Get to the end of the hallway and turn to bathroom. Up above in the dark room, inside a darker mass than should be normal, see glowing red eyes staring down at me, completely paralyzed in fear. Eyes tower over me and just stares. Stand there, unable to muster even a sound to reach out to my veteran MP dad just 10 yards away. Eventually regain motor functions and bolt, wailing like a kid that was just visited by a demon. Get to him, drops everything and investigates, finding nothing. Scarred for over a decade, hyper-conscious whenever in a bathroom. Even when at mom's or dad's at a different place, feel vulnerable and paranoid. New bathroom, shitty old bathroom, doesn't matter, hate bathrooms for a decade. Unable to enjoy the universal manly solace of the Oval Office most times for a decade. Never see the eyes again. What did I see? What did it mean? Not many accounts cover explicitly just the eyes. Many mention shadows or eyes in tandem with specific cryptids like the Mothman, but never anything quite like this. This is my only definitive paranormal encounter that I remember besides just odd feelings. Could this be because of a higher resistance to psychic attacks? If so, why was I vulnerable here? Honestly, almost feels like I was being reminded that I have something watching over me, whether for good or for bad.